Okay, so hello everyone, and thank you for joining this webinar on R&D excellence. So we will wait a couple of minutes before starting, just that the other participant join. And so I will be the presenter today, Timothée Delorme, the expert at IAC Partners on this topic. And I will be supported by Thomas Reynard, my moderator today, and he will be the guy who will collect all of your questions and remarks during the presentation. And so maybe to begin and before to start and to wait, I would like to ask you some question on an emblematic project on this topic. So I would like to ask you why Taishan 1 and 2 Chinese APR are considered as a success. So you can give your answer on the right-hand corner on your comments, and I would be glad to answer before starting the presentation. Okay, so maybe to answer this question, so the first answer is maybe obvious, but because they are the first APR in service so far, so it's the first one of this new generation of nuclear plants, and also because they are only 5 years late and 60% over budgets. That seems a lot, but if we compare to Flamanville, we are far behind. With approximately 11 years late to date and plus 540% over budget. So of course we are, this is a lot more, and that means that the specialists say that it's quite a success for only having this amount of drift and in the budget and the planning. So maybe we are still waiting for some. Okay, so we can start. So today I will be the presenter of this presentation. So I would like to welcome you, and I will be supported by Thomas Reynard, my moderator. So I just present myself a little bit. I am a manager at IAC Partners. I have approximately 5 years of experience at IAC, and I did a lot of projects regarding competitiveness, but I specialized in R&D competitiveness and managed some projects regarding improving competitiveness on the non-recurring costs. So I would like to share with you my experience today, and to introduce the topic in a quite, I would say, 30-40 minute presentation before some question and answers at the end of the presentation. So I will introduce the topic, and next we will have the presentation will be split into 3 parts. First, an overview of the main root cause of the planning and budget drifts. Next, I will emphasize on key axes of competitiveness to work on for R&D departments, so quite methodological tools. And I would like to spend some time at the end with a concrete case study on a project we are carrying on, and to share it with you. So just as an introduction on the non-recurring costs, just to say that historically the industrials are worked a lot on the recurring cost side. It was something historically at IAC Partners we managed, but what we can see now is also a major interest on the non-recurring cost sides by the industrials, and we are currently doing some projects and supporting industrials on this topic. And it's not only one industrial sector, it's very different industries. And we can have a look at the next slide. That's there are various industries that can be concerned by non-recurring costs. Of course, there are some diversity depending on the industry and the importance of the non-recurring costs. Of course, on the left-hand side, on the chart here, you can see that space and defense, we are in the high-tech and low-volume quantities for programs, so meaning that non-recurring cost is most of the cost. And when we go to automotive and household goods, there, of course, it's the recurring costs that are the most of the cost of a program. That's clear, but we can see that several industries have significant non-recurring costs and are very interested in working on this cost. So next, I will explain in detail some root cause of planning drifts and budget over costs. We just observed with industrials. The first one is the budget estimation. So when you are upstream and you estimate poorly your development costs. So Freeman, with an American guy, just did some curve on it, some theory, just saying that if you either underestimate or overestimate your budget, you will have some disaster and some inefficiencies. I will explain a little bit. On the underestimation side, this means unrealistic cost, unrealistic activities, etc., and lots of rework, and that leads to I would say a significant gap between the initial estimation and the end result. And at the opposite, when you overestimate, here it's a lot of waste. It's a consideration of waste because the nature doesn't like the void, and when you have more hours to do something, you just fill in the hours, and that's the case. Another one is the change in specification during projects. So today, lots of engineerings are working concurrently and upstream to just to optimize the planning. But one of the outcome and the consequences are that later in the process, the customer, either external or internal, can change the specifications and the requirements. And that is no doubt has some effect on the outcome of the project. So it's we call it a change of scope. And industrials must know that the impacts are not the same depending on the departments. If you are doing some mechanical activities or software, for instance, it's not the same impact. Meaning that for the software, you can have a change later on the developments with reasonable impact, and that's not the case on the mechanical side. And of course, the later you make the change, the more impact it has on the project. Another one very common is the wrong estimation of the maturity level. So you can see at the right-hand side the technology and manufacturing readiness level scales, very classical, and you may know them. And here it's just to say that very often the teams are not aligned on the evaluation of the maturity of a building block you employ on the development. For instance, the R&T department can say that it's very mature, and of course it's not, and it's not the right level. And another point is the threshold effect, meaning that it's not a linear scale. Sorry. And for instance, going from TRL6 to TRL7 is quite a lot of efforts, because it's meaning being qualified in operational environments. And it's not the same deal than, for instance, from TRL5 to 6. So one must be aware of these threshold effects when assessing, I would say, the maturity gap to be filled during the development. Another one is about the reuse level. In every development, or approximately everyone, there is not, I would say, an empty blank sheet of paper when you develop something. You reuse building blocks, partly or integrally. And here the problem is very often the reusability level is not well assessed, and in reality, when we are conducting the development, it appears that there are some development that were not considered upstream, and that means additional hours and delays during the development, and that's very important to. In this case, to properly evaluate upstream the reusability level of the building blocks to be employed. And I would like to share another root cause of delays. It's all about here resource management. Here is to say that there are some bottlenecks with the resources, and that the bottlenecks must be identified upstream during the planification of the programs, and also must be considered during execution of the programs, saying that if some resources are overloaded, one must not just close the eyes and must resolve the problem. And so very often it's the view is not clear upstream during planification, and during execution there are no prioritization, and that means to unrealistic planning, to people that are doing multitasking because they have to do more tasks that they can, and this leads to a lot of inefficiencies and of course to delays. So now I would like to explain some of the methodology framework we built on the R&D excellence. Based on our experience on the industry, we synthesize, I would say, 7 axes of competitiveness regarding R&D excellence. You can see on the left-hand side that we have 2 main blocks of axes. One is about the CSUD BU level, so it's cross-functional. It's not only R&D, but R&D is a key part of it. And the bottom axes are purely engineering level, I would say, and so more specific R&D departments. So the first one I would like to share with you is the product competitiveness, because before saying that we want to optimize the developments, one must ask the question: is the development, is the object we developed right? Does it answer to a market need? And is it viable, so competitive with the right costs to meet the market at the end of the day? So this is a key question. Because if it's not good, I would say the development is meaningless. And to answer that, the organization must have some design to value and cost approaches, and the optimal organization have such approach by design in their processes and are very well organized. And systematically, when there are new developments, all of these questions are asked. And I would say the product is well fitted at the end of the day. So next, I would say more optimization, more non-recurring cost and time to market optimization topic. So here the second one is the standardization and modular design. So it's all about the concept of do not reinvent the wheel. We just saw before with the reuse, saying that when you have a new opportunity, not only just customize completely new developments, but reuse some building blocks you have in stocks, and so really build a real modular design strategy. So not opportunistic building blocks, by the way, but really a holistic view of the market needs and building block definition accordingly. So this is a very important concept, and this is not only something from engineering, because you need to involve also the programs that will get the building blocks, and also for instance, the sales and marketing, because you need to orientate, I would say, your commercial offer accordingly. The next one I want to share with you is the multi-project resource management we saw just before. So here it's really all about implementing a system, planification system that takes into account the resource, I would say, bottlenecks, the resource constraints, I would say in a multi-project environment. So both at program level, but also at the engineering level, to be very sure that these resource constraints are taken into account, and also during execution, a prioritization, clear prioritization rules at each level, so department, between programs, and perhaps sometimes also at the management level. So another one on data governance. Here it's also key. It's really to get the same vision of all of the teams, so the engineering departments, programs, other departments, to be aligned on where the project stands. So the KPIs of the projects. So are we late? Are we over budget, etc. And also when we have some shift, to create some transparency on the shifts. Very important here also, not just to count the point at the end of the day, but to be very transparent along the road. So here it's all about to secure over cost and delays. Now I will explain some engineering level axis. So the development logic. So you may know the V-cycle development or the agile logics. We are not here to say that one is more interesting than another one. All of this approach can be interesting. And here, the concept of maturity regarding development logic is more to be considered as a lean approach, lean in terms of deliverable, because I would say customer-oriented, so not deliver less than required, not more than required. Very important. I give you an example. If someone just needs some figures in a table, Excel table sheet, it doesn't need a full presentation of 40 pages. This means obvious, but we encountered this situation in several customers. And the lean development scope here is to say that you have a reconfigurable developments. So you know when you change the specification, what are the impacts on the underlying functional functions, and hardware, and so you are able to redevelop just at the necessary level, not to redevelop everything, but just I would say the building blocks that are impacted. On the costing and estimation side, so here it's related to one of the drift we saw before. It's to be able to build an appropriate view of the budget. Not to say that you need to have a very detailed budget at the early phase, but to have the proper level of detail according to the purpose of the costs and estimates. If you are doing a round pricing, it's not the same thing that when you are committing to a firm offer, and not the same thing again that when you are doing the follow-up budget during the project. And accordingly, you need to have the proper scope description level, to employ the proper costing processes, and to have the proper methodology. When we say methodology, do we have some analogy with other projects? Do we have some parametric calculations? Or more accurately, do we do some activity-based description? So we just deep dive with the concrete task to get more accurate numbers. And the last one, which is important again also, is the risk management. So here, I think every organization is conducting some risk analysis, no doubt with that. But the fact here in the mature organization is to have a holistic view of the risk. So not only, I would say, a project risk internal, but also including the partners, the value chain, the customers, etc. And again, doing such risk analysis at each level, from the engineering departments at the basis and also at the outcome to the program and to the management, but starting with the engineering departments. So just to give you an example of the different maturity level, here is a snapshot on the level on standardization and modular design. So what we see as a standard level of maturity here is to be able to do the modular design in a holistic view, so not just opportunistically, but when you have the whole view of the market needs and the evolutions, and you say, okay, now what will be tomorrow my offer, and what will be tomorrow my technical building blocks to answer that. And that's very important I would say, to be able to say which building block will be a common platform, because it will not evolve in the time, and or it's very coupled between other building blocks, and which one are a module, because it will be there will be some evolution, some expected evolution in time, and so that it's necessary to be a module, so to be plug and play with new evolutions tomorrow. So on the advance here, it's not only the technical process to do the modular design, it's more about the organization behind, because it's very nice to have I would say a huge catalog of building blocks, but if it's not managed with a proper product policy, it will not be used and it will be useless. So that's why here it's all about having an organization properly defined, with product management, with building block owners, and with I would say some rules to say, okay, we have a catalog and we use the catalog in priority, and all the deviation must be, I would say, must be signalized, or must be authorized. And the optimal one, just want to explain here, the building block library dynamic. So here is all about the RRL scale. I will explain a little bit. It's to have the one I presented earlier, to assess the level of reusability of a building block, meaning that here you can see actual and targets, just saying that it's not necessary to have a full reusable building block according to the future need we expect, and a very mature organization manage actively the building block. It's not a static view, it's a dynamic view, and depending on the market evolution, on the customer support feedbacks, just evolve the building block. And next you have some configuration of the building block with the version 1, version 2, etc. So I would like to share with you an example of a recent project, very recent because we are carrying on this project so far right now. It's a player in the defense industry here with approximately 1 billion yearly turnover, but the approach could be generalized in several industries, and it's not limited to defense industry. I would like to emphasize on this. So here the problematic was the systematic delays and overcosts, and also a lack of available resources to conduct the programs. And so that's why the customer wanted to look for concrete opportunities for improvements at the organizational level. So very concretely, it's a transformation plan, not just project by project optimization. I would say on a project, but really on how the organization is built, and the improvement that can be made. And a quick view on the approach here. 3 steps. Here it's very classical on the steps. I think it's the same way for every transformation plan project. So I won't spend a lot of time on the process itself, but more than on the snapshot of how did we do concretely with the customer. But just to sum up the 3 steps, the first one is the evaluation, because before designing a new model, one must know what is the current situation. So here, what we do is concretely an analysis of the as-is operating model. So operating model, we mean processes in place, we need organization and governance, and we need, of course, the resources, can be people and can be tools. We deep dive into project because we wanted to have some concrete figures behind just an analysis high level. So that was key, and it's very important to have this in mind, and also looking at projects can give us some feedbacks and some improvement ideas. And at the end of the day, we assessed collectively the maturity level of the as-is organization on several axes of maturity, and we did some preliminary recommendations. So this is quite short, I would say, not more than one month. But it's very key to proceed to the next stage. Next, the design phase. So here is to build a high-level target operating model. First point is where do we want to go? The ambition. One must not want to go to the optimal level. That's obvious. And the second point is to serve this ambition, what will be the target processes, the target organization, etc. So really a mapping of this new organization and new way of processing to be more mature. And the last one is, okay, it's very cool to have the to-be organization on the map, but what is also important is how do we go to this to-be operating model. So the concrete action plan, the concrete how concretely we do. So some change can be made very quickly, and some can be made during the project. We call it the quick wins, but some other need some transformation roadmap because it's not I would say it can take time to recruit some people, to implement some IT tools, etc. And it's not something that is very short term. So we had some short, mid, and long term actions. And now I would like to share with you some snapshots on how we did on this project. So the first step was the evaluation phase. So here we concretely nominated some referent people on each axis of maturity that had some expert view on the organization, and we also interviewed some people directly involved in the programs. So either on the departments, engineering departments, but also the program manager directly to have some feedback from them. So it was very interesting because we had views from some mechanical engineering department, electrical engineering, system engineering. So it was very hands-on and on the field evaluation. And what we did at the end, we had some quantitative and qualitative analysis. So the qualitative analysis, it's all about I would say the outcome of the interviews, of what was going wrong, what was going right, what was the current operating model, etc. And the quantitative one is really some analysis of the performance on selected projects regarding what was the end result of the selected project, regarding cost, regarding planning, and regarding resources issues, all of the things we underlined as an introduction. And the outcome of this was concretely maturity level assessments, but not only. At this stage, we already had some observation and some preliminary improvement levels. So that was also a guide for the next phase, the design phase of the project. So on this one, it's, I would say, the heart of the project. So that's why it's the one that lasts the more. What is very important and what we did here is to nominate some work groups from each axis And the work groups needed to be very representative of all the stakeholders for such axis. I just explained myself, for instance, on the building block axis. Here we nominated people from both engineering departments, from program, but also from sales, for instance, sales and marketing, because it's key to involve such player, as again I explained before. And either it was a R&D purely mandated project, we couldn't only set some barriers, some silo, and saying that, okay, because it's engineering, we do not involve the other departments. I would like to be very clear on this. And this was key for change management, because we need to end up to an agreement, to the new process, to the new rules, etc. And so we built a work plan here, serving the ambition. And concretely, on each of the workshop we held, each one was to map something new on for instance, of the new rules, of the new process, of the new role and responsibilities here of people. So I give you an example on the resource multi-project management. What we did is what we mapped the to-be high-level process. So from start, from project planification as from start to project executions. And what we set up is we set up some prioritization, I would say, meetings on these processes. And next we set up some prioritization rules. You can see on the bottom left, saying that what would be a prioritized project from another one, and it was not very well established in this case, so we established something. And on the process of prioritization, we said, okay, we prioritize at the engineering department level first, so activity by activity. Next, we prioritize at the program level, with program between program. And at the end of the day, on some very impacting modifications, we go to the management. So that was an example, but we did it for several axes. And at the end of the day, we had some high-level view of to-be operating model, what we want to be organization. And the last point at the bottom was the delivery of quick wins. Again, for some small but interesting improvement, it was very nice to have deliverables. Give an example again on the costing template, for instance, costing and estimation. The ambition here is to set up something before the end of the project. And the last phase, so on this case study, it will be the beginning of this phase, but just to say a few words on it, here it will be all to be okay on the process, on the organization, etc. What is the short-term implementation? What is the mid-term, long-term, and how do we go there? So what will be the action roadmap? And after that, to have some financial assessment of what will be the effort necessary to, I would say, to implement. There are some investments to be made, and on the bottom side, it's clearly here the transfer, the buying and the transfer, saying that we are here for the transformation roadmap, and next this needs to be paced by the client for the implementation. And the same thing, we had work groups during the project. There will be some transformation leaders at the end of the day on the customer side. So we are at the end of the presentation. It was very short, but I hope I gave you some snapshots of what we do and of some key axes of maturity to be worked on. So as a summary, we saw just some key figures on different industries on what the non-recurring costs represent. We overviewed some root cause of planning and budget drift. I explained you the synthesized 7 axes of maturity we consider at IAC for an R&D organization. And we had a look on the case study with typically a 3-step approach, but this is the theory. What is important is to be able to conduct the change between the organization, and this saying that it is key to be able to speak to the engineers, and that's why we at IAC we enjoy a lot such approach, because we can deep dive and go very on the field with the mechanical engineering, with the sales and marketing, with the purchasing. So it was, as it was R&D department topic, okay, it was that, but it involved at the end of the day several other departments that are interfaced with R&D, and that was very interesting for us, and also the fact is it would be very impacting also for the outcome of the project. So I would like to thank you very much. Now we go through the question and answers. So I will be very happy to answer. Maybe I go through my moderator. The skill. What about the skill level of the teams? So that's a good point. When we assess the maturity level of an organization, we also assess the people, the level of maturity of the people. So are they, for instance, sensibilized to the costing? If I take this example, for the costing and estimating processes, the methodology, etc. And if it's not the case, of course, this will lead to I would say, a poor level of maturity for this particular point. And that's the thing we underline during the project. We underline this point, and this leads to some improvement levels, and some are concretely bringing up the level of maturity, doing some training, sensibilize by us directly, or also by a specialist within the organization. Alors, KPIs in engineering are often data cemeteries, collecting KPI which can be used to drive the car. What is your top 3-5 KPIs? Okay, so the KPIs we have several ones. We have some on the costs. Here we like to manage the cost, the other costs regarding to the reference. So we have the cost at termination, which is the cost reevaluated by the team at the one point of time. We compare it to the last validated reference, and so this is taking into account what the program accepts with degraded margin, and we compare it also to the reference. And the reference, what is very important, can evolve, because when you have some scope evolution, it must be a reference evolution and not, I would say, a problem of efficiency of the R&D. So this is on the cost. On the planning side, so you have the reference planning and the actuated planning one, and that's also an important point. And one must also not neglect the quality, I would say, because at the end of the day, we can deliver something, but with not the proper level of quality and outcome. So here, to have some metrics, we can measure some deviation, number of deviations, stuff like that, or customer level of satisfaction, because at the end of the day, it's the customer we sell. KPIs to measure. Do we have some example of KPIs to measure reuse, so building blocks in mecha, hardware, etc. So the KPI to measure reuse. So here it's how it's how many programs the building blocks are reused. It's really an ineffective way. Do we reuse things or not? So it's very effective, I would say. And again, the reusability, it's not something yes or no, it's something, sometimes it's partially reusable, totally reusable, stuff like that. So it's not black and white, what I would really want to underline here. And even if we are in the we have a product management to manage the reuse. The product manager are not just blind with the projects. They need to have some interference with the projects. He needs to have some feedbacks from the projects, some feedbacks from the field, from the customer, etc. And so to have some metrics on the usability concretely on the programs. Okay, the questionnaire answers. Is it a self-assessment answer? No, we didn't want to proceed like this way. We wanted to. This was really a guide for us conducting the interviews to be sure that we would have all answers on every topic we want to address. But we also let place from open questions. It was not only closed questions. To get important thing here is to really get open discussion with the guys. So we really wanted and tried to mix some factual answers helping the assessments, but also some open discussions because when you do so, you learn a lot. It's by experience I can say that. Okay, at the beginning of you present a matrix with two kind of levels, engineering and cross-functional BU level. How do you manage to work on this BU level? So here is the very nice question. I tried to explain a little bit earlier, but yes, we involve people from other departments that are working that were working in such topics. So even if it was an engineering mandated project, we were not blind. It would be a mistake to my mind just to say that we work by ourselves on an engineering side, but we do not consider what they do at the sales and marketing, at the program side, and etc. And that's, I think, it's a big mistake. So what we need to do is we need to inform also the stakeholders, meaning that. There is not only the VP engineering in the sponsor and the steerco of such initiative, but also the VP of other departments. And next, in the operational core teams, to have representatives from these departments. Do you mostly work in this kind of projects? Would you say most of your projects employ an engineering perspective? So I try to understand what you say by engineering perspective. But at IAC, we are used to work with engineerings, either from recurring cost optimization at non-recurring cost optimization. We are very focused on industry. We do not work a lot with services and stuff like that. So that's why we are, I think, very centric on engineering, because on such project, the engineering cost is the most of the non-recurring cost of the program. So I think it's the heart of the number of hours and number of euro spent in the program, and the other expense, sorry, are gravitating around this. But the engineering is the centric. I would say is most of the cost. So that's why it was important to in the project we had to start with engineering and to involve the other departments around. Are we talking about a single prioritization project list shared by all the actors on the company? At the end of the day, the rule we define with the prioritization of the project, yes, it's to have single view of what is prioritized. But what we wanted to do in such implementation is that we wanted to have some program portfolio manager that at the end of the day is the real referee, if I would say, to decide. Just explain myself. Is because on the engineering department level, you may have some activities that are critical that are on the critical path on a project that is not critical, in conflict with activities that are not on the critical path of critical programs. And in this case, it's not just saying we work on the critical project. It's saying that we work on the critical path of because on the critical project, the activity is not critical. So that's why we need to be careful when we say we prioritize between the project. This is really for the program level. So when there is a conflict on two programs, and when, for instance, an engineering department has two critical paths or more, and here is to say we need to decide, and this prioritization system is to serve this, to have an objective view. Okay, so the processes described today will bring benefit, but will also create cost. At which level of R&D organization side it brings net benefits, million budget, etc., number of people. Yes, again, it's okay. It's quite an investment, so it's not for 10 people organization clearly, but for several hundreds million of turnover. To hear the example of 1 billion, it's clearly something that could be implemented. It depends also on the situation of the company. Is the company doing a lot of projects? Is the company more in a product-centric approach, and so the engineering hours are not huge? This will really depend on the activities, and clearly it's not the same from an automotive company with a product-centric organization to a company that is more on project. And this we really can observe it, and we determine it during I would say the first discussion with the industrials, so before the project or at the beginning, if we start something. So thank you for your questions. I was very happy to share my experience. Again, it was very quick. I have lots of things to present, but not the time. So I will be very glad to, I would say, to discuss more with you on specific axes, or either on a holistic view of your maturity. And so please feel free to do so and to ask your question if you have more. You have my contact information. Normally, my moderator is managing it on the comments. And just saying also that the presentation will be shared early next week, so you will have all the details we presented today. And again, I was very happy and to share that with you. And I wish you a very pleasant day. And again, I expect to speak with you further on in the next days. Thank you very much.